If you've clicked on this video, then no, I don't think the Ravens should trade Lamar Jackson. I'm not that insane. But given that Lamar's on his last year of his rookie contract and that contract extension talks are not taking place currently due to Lamar wanting to focus on football, it does beg the question of whether the Ravens should move on from Lamar, which again is an insane thought. He's won an MVP before, he's led his team to a #1 seed, he has been an unbelievable runner of the football, and this year especially an incredible passer of the football as well from a pocket, and therefore he has every right to ask for an absolutely monstrous contract, whether that be from the Ravens or imagine if he tested free agency. That would be the craziest free agency cycle I think I would ever have seen. So then why would the Ravens want to move on from Lamar? Well, in this video we're going to take a look at that, so let's do it. So for the Ravens to trade Lamar Jackson at the end of the season, he would first be franchise tagged by the team, probably given the exclusive tag, and then he would be shipped to another team. Now for Lamar, I mean, this is really just a win-win scenario, as long as you don't go to like a terrible team, of course. But as from a financial standpoint, it's an absolutely win-win scenario, because either the Ravens pay you an absolute boatload of money, or you get traded to a team and probably, actually for certain, will be the highest paid quarterback in NFL history. I mean, we've seen some absolutely ridiculous deals go down in the NFL over the past few years, especially with Deshaun Watson getting all that guaranteed money, and I would certainly expect Lamar to be on the phone with whatever team he's with at that point and saying that I want that kind of deal, because he certainly deserves it and he has every right to ask for it. So he really can't go wrong in this scenario. Now, from a Ravens point of view, why would you move on from Lamar Jackson? Well, I think it's obviously a really tough situation. So either you pay Lamar Jackson the most money in the history of any player in the NFL, which you probably should do, certainly, or you tag him and trade him. Now, if you trade him, the compensation would be sky high. It'd be unbelievable. You'd probably get at least 4 to 5 first-round picks and like a few stud players from that team back as well. Because think about it, if you're a franchise such as the Jaguars, or maybe not the Jaguars, the Texans for example, teams like that, they would be absolutely willing to get Lamar Jackson, an unreal quarterback, into their building, and whether that cost 5 first-round picks or 10 first-round picks, it really doesn't matter to them. To get that much, to get that freaky upside player in Lamar Jackson, and it's not even upside, he's shown that he's unbelievable. To get that kind of player in their building would be an unbelievable move, whether it costs them, whatever it costs them really. And certainly they'd be willing to pay the Ravens whatever money and like whatever they need to cover financial costs, or whatever players that the Ravens would need back from them. So essentially the Ravens would be trading Lamar Jackson for 4 first-round picks, or 5 maybe, a few, probably the few best players on the other team's roster, and $250 to $275 million of cap space in the next 4 to 5 years, which of course they can use to spend in free agency. And while this trade might seem unrealistic, like from both teams' standpoint, like obviously the Ravens definitely would not trade Lamar Jackson, but from the Ravens' point of view, even if you do, you probably wouldn't expect that kind of return. I certainly could see it. I mean, Lamar Jackson's caliber of quarterback has not hit the trade market in unbelievable. Like, I don't remember the last quarterback that was as good as Lamar Jackson. I don't think there has been that has hit the trade market. And the chance to get your hands on a quarterback like Lamar Jackson, sure, you're going to be paying him a ton of money, and you're going to be losing a bunch of picks, and potentially your roster might be slightly worse around him for it, but Lamar has the ability to work without that roster. Like, sure, obviously the Ravens have supported him a lot, but Lamar Jackson by himself is better than 4 to 5 individual players outside of that position. So I could see this potentially working out for the Ravens as well, and for whatever team obviously is going to be getting him. But the question that arises now is, what do the Ravens do without the elite quarterback of Lamar Jackson on their roster and obviously probably a slightly better like a roster around the quarterback position because of the picks and the players coming in. But what do they do without that elite presence in Lamar Jackson? How do they become a Super Bowl force once again? Well, if you trade with a team like the Panthers, for example, or maybe the Texans or someone like that with a really high first-round pick this year, you like one or two of the quarterbacks that are going to be at the top of this draft, you could potentially, and again, it's going to sound really dumb, but you could trade Lamar Jackson for 4 first-round picks, a few like those roster spots, and whatever quarterback you choose at the top of the draft. You could have you could probably trade Lamar Jackson for the number 1 pick and another like 2 first-round picks. Like 100% you could swing that if you're the Ravens. And if they do that, they could have if they really like Bryce Young or whichever quarterback they choose to go with, they could definitely replace Lamar Jackson that way. And again, I know it sounds stupid, but it really, it probably won't happen, right? But it's certainly an option there. If they, for example, if the Falcons get the number 1 overall pick, right, and they certainly will be in the market for QB, whether it's the draft or trading or anything like that, they will have their ears open for sure. But if Lamar Jackson hits the trade block, they will be 100% ready to give up the number 1 overall pick in a flash. And if the Ravens truly want a Bryce Young or a CJ Stroud, they can have their pick of whichever quarterback they want and then develop that quarterback into that system with a ton of first-round picks and a bunch of talent on that team around them. And it's a radical strategy for sure, but it could potentially happen. It's definitely a possibility. They would take a most definite decline at quarterback for a overall better roster probably around the quarterback position, and if they believe they can win that way, I genuinely would be considering that if I'm the Ravens. Obviously, if you can get a deal done with Lamar 100% in a second, just get him in the building 100%, sign him to a long-term extension. The longer the better for the Ravens. But if Lamar really doesn't want to sign an extension with you, tagging and trading him is not the worst idea. Obviously, if he hits free agency, the max you're going to get out of that is a compensatory pick. So the best thing you could do at that point is tag and trade him. If he really doesn't want to be, like, if relations, for example, fall apart during contract talks, if he doesn't want to be there, tag and trade him, because you're not going to get more than a compensatory if he walks away. What about the teams that could trade for Lamar Jackson? So obviously, it's not going to happen, but what if he did hit the trade block? What teams could be in the market? So I certainly believe the Texans, the Falcons, the Panthers, all going to have high picks, all going to be needing quarterbacks, all will be willing to give up their very, very high draft picks and whatever talent they have in their roster to go get a Lamar Jackson. The Panthers especially, I'd be 100%, I could see them trading Brian Burns, like a few other guys in the roster, maybe some offensive threats, and going to get a Lamar Jackson from the Ravens. I'd certainly, if I'm the Panthers, I'd call about it at least. After, probably he's going to get tagged at this point. After he gets tagged, I'd call about it. They'd probably hang up on me. But it certainly would intrigue me greatly if I'm the Panthers right now and just going to get Lamar with anything I have at this point. But the really interesting teams, I think, is what if a Tom Brady retires, for example, which I don't think, again, is going to happen this year given his situation off the field. But if he does retire, that would be really interesting to see a Buccaneers team go and get Lamar Jackson and potentially propel that roster back into Super Bowl status, or potentially another contender like the Vikings, for example. The Vikings could potentially trade back Kirk Cousins to the Ravens. It would be a serviceable, I'd suppose, starter there, and the Ravens could get 5 first-round picks from that, probably a few players, and build their roster that way. Really, if the Ravens truly want to move on from Lamar Jackson, they have endless opportunities. They could probably call up about 29 teams in the NFL, except the Chiefs and the Bills, and be like, hey, do you want Lamar Jackson for 8 picks? And every player that we want from you, plus every financial burden is on you. Do you want him? And they'd probably say yes, because Lamar Jackson is that unbelievable of a player. He's insane, and I would certainly, if he gets on the trade block, that would be unbelievable to see which team and which roster, which front office goes and gets him. But yeah, that's about it for me. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about this, and let me know what other views you guys would want to see too. Do you really think Lamar could be traded? I don't think so, but if he is, that'd be unbelievable for the NFL. That'd be the biggest trade probably ever. And whichever team would get him would be, first of all, they'd lose a ton of picks, but they'd also have to pay him an unreal amount of money. If you're trading that many picks for Lamar Jackson, you're gonna have to give him like a third of your salary cap. Like that is, okay, maybe not a third, like a fourth of your salary cap for sure. He is going to demand a ton of guaranteed money too. So yeah, let me know in the comments, and yeah, peace out.